Hello, everybody. Welcome to Highway of the Hidden. I'm your host, Polar Bear, and on tonight we got Mr. Robby Rains. How you doing tonight, brother?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, making it. So we met on y'all's podcast, and I figured I'd reach out and see if you wanted to come on and discuss your book. I started reading it, and I really enjoyed it, man. Shadow Walkers. It's very good book.
Well, appreciate it.
I know we were discussing a little bit about it before we started recording. And what's something that gave you the inspiration? I know my favorite and one of your favorite we had talked about is werewolves and stuff. Is
hmm
that like something like you've liked since you were a kid, or what kind of gave you the inspiration for the book
Yeah.
like that?
Well, and we talked about my encounter when I was a kid, so obviously that opened the door for me to start liking stuff like that. And I always like, my mom hated it, but I loved the Friday the 13th movies. I like Nightmare on Elm Street, but I was always more of the Friday the 13th. And obviously, werewolves don't get the credit in cinema that they deserve. They don't ever get the good movies.
Right.
But I was lucky enough to see Silver Bullet. However it happened. We watched that in school when it was towards the end of the school year. Teacher really didn't know what we were watching, but of course back then, there wasn't as many guidelines as there is. Somebody brought it. One of my classmates brought it. We got to watch Silver Bullet in school, and I saw that. Now I had seen Teen Wolf, and I obviously had seen the old Wolfman movies and that stuff. That's a different kind of werewolf than what you get in Silver Bullet. There's a lot of people that bag on that movie because Carlo Rambaldi's werewolf was not. It looked more like a big teddy bear. When you're in like sixth grade and you see that movie, you don't care that it's still scary. That opened up a whole because like I see, I'm thinking of Michael J. Fox first. That's you've seen that, and then you see that movie and you're just like, whoa, this is something totally different. From that movie on, watching that, flip the switch. I was like, okay, this I like this. This is me. The werewolves are that's my jam.
Yeah.
And so, I went into watching and I probably have. There's maybe a couple of stupid ones that I hadn't seen, but I've probably seen just about every cheesy where C, D, E, F, and G werewolf movie that's come out. You get on Tubi's a beautiful thing. You get on stuff and it brings up stuff that most people have never even heard of, and I'll sit there and watch it just because it's a werewolf movie. All that being said, obviously that was, my favorite monster. So I've had that story or some version of that story rolling around in my head for probably close to 30 years. I mean, at least as long as I've been in law enforcement, which is like 29 years. So, or 28 and a half, almost 29 years. So I've had some version of that story for a long time. And obviously the very first iteration of it started out, the very bare bones of the story is the same, but the whole overarching story was completely different. And I got being friends with DA, I learned a lot, and I'm glad I didn't start writing it. Well, take that back. I did start writing it several times with handwriting it, and thankfully that was what deterred me from keeping on because I did that was a lot to write.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't go through the whole thing until I got to be friends with him and learned what I learned. Because I don't think it would have been. And I'm my own worst critic. I still don't think it's great, but that's just me. But it would have been nowhere near what it is had I not been friends with him for the past 4 years. That completely changed because his style of writing is what I like to read. So that gave me my writing style. I mean, obviously it's not 100% like his. I mean, you've read his books and you read mine. I'm sure you can see similarities in his
Yes.
writing style and mine. And I, and that's what he says. He said, that's to him. That's for most writers. That's a big compliment is when another writer, especially one starting out, can take your style and make something their own out of it. And I give him credit all the time. He's like, dude, you wrote the story. And I'm like, yeah, but you just don't understand how much inspiration that you give people. So, but anyway, back to your original question. You know watching the old werewolf movies, that's what gave me a lot of the inspiration. But getting with Da and learning his writing style and seeing how he writes things and how he breaks down, there's more to writing a book than just sitting down and typing the story out. And coming up with the story in itself is fairly easy, but then going through character arcs, going through making sure your continuity stays the same, all that stuff was stuff that I had no clue about when I first got this idea. I had a general idea, but I had no idea how to put that idea on paper and make that story make sense and make it work. So everything happens for a reason, right?
All right.
When it's supposed to happen, and that's why I think or a good reason for me to wait was because I needed to learn, and I had no way of learning until I met him because I didn't know anybody that wrote books or anything like that. And that's what I thought when I wrote him the email. I was like, he's a famous author. He's never going to reply to me. I had no
Right.
clue about independent authors or any of that kind of stuff. I didn't know how that worked. Because all I knew was Stephen King and all how famous they are. I'm like, well, that must be how all authors are. He's like, no,
It,
no. It's just,
that's same here.
yeah.
Same here. When I DM'd him the first time, I was like, "There's no way he's gonna come on my show with 13 subscribers." Well, no, he did. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." He's, and so that was the inspiration. How did you bring them to life exactly? Like give them their own personalities, from the villain to the hero to even like the side characters. The big fight scene in the very beginning of the book between, I don't want to give it away, but between the main bad guy and then he has to fight the other creature. Like, how did you even come up with that?
Well, I always thought about being in law enforcement. I always thought about, I worked in a small city, but I always thought, what happens? There's a lot of guys work for the county, and they go out. And my stepdad worked for the sheriff's office, and there was lots of times, he'd be up in the area where that book takes place. He'd be the only deputy for 20, 30 miles. So backup is legitimately 25 to 30 minutes away. So, and I got to think of what would happen if you're out there and you're on a call and something like this happens. What are you going to do, and what would happen if you're having to wait for this? So that started kind of building that part of the story. But there again, like I said, I still wasn't there, and it's just. And DA had always he was on, you need to write it, because I'd talked to him about it and kind of told him like I said, the bare bones of the story of what I had. He said, I'm like, I can't do that. And he said, dude, you've been a cop for almost 30 years. He said, you know how to write. I'm like, no, I don't know. He said, write it like you write a report. And he just kept beating that in my head. And finally one night I was just sitting there or laying in bed trying to go to sleep, and it legitimately was like somebody put a funnel in my ear and poured the first 3 chapters into my head, because it was just like it just sprang to being, so to speak. So I got up, went to work early the next morning, got in my office, and just started banging away. So then I had to go out and do my arrival for the kids to get there and all that stuff. I got back in my office finally, and I typed up an email and sent it to Doc and DA, and then sent them in our group chat. I said, "Hey boys, check your email. I need y'all to read something." I think about 30 minutes later, he sent me back a text, and all it said was "dude" with like three exclamation points. And then a couple, maybe 20 minutes after that, Doc sent one. He said, "Holy shnikes!" And DA said, "How long have you been working on that?" I said, "I did that this morning." He goes, "You wrote all that this morning?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got to work this morning." And he said, "You wrote 3 chapters in like a couple of hours?" I'm like, "Yeah, is that not good?" And he said, "That's fantastic."
That's fast.
It took me just over, I think, just over a month to get that first book out.
And so what about, I haven't read the second one yet, but I'm getting there. Is it a build off of the first one completely?
Yeah, the Shadow Walkers. That's a series, and they're again learning from DA. I had the original story, probably would have been, if I'd wrote it as a book, would have probably been a book like that thick, because
Oh God.
the story
Okay.
was just so expansive, and there was just, that's where I was like, okay, well, I can split this up into a bunch of books. Of course, the second one doesn't really have anything to do with the original story that I had in mind. I guess probably towards the middle to maybe closer towards the end of the book is where I came up with the idea for where they were going to go in the second book. It's like, I thought, nobody has ever written a story that I know of about the lizard man. We got a famous cryptid in South Carolina, down in the lower part of the state, the lizard man of Escape Swamp. And I'm like, So I bounced it off DA and said, "What do you think?" He said, "I think that's a amazing idea." So that's where the second one came in. And in the second one, I felt so much more comfortable. I kind of stretched my wings and went a little bit out of my comfort. If you read the first one like you're reading, it's safe. I mean, I've got a small group of characters. I focus on those characters, and then I think there's some good action in it, but it doesn't get expansive. The second one, towards the end, there's 2 big fights going on at the same time, so I had to kind of bounce back and forth and telling this part of the fight and going telling this part of the fight. That was a big stretch. And then like in this third one, I'm going even further out because I'm getting into some other stuff. And that's what DA has tried to teach me, is just, you're always just trying to be a better writer than you were yesterday. So I'm enjoying the ride. It's fun, and all this ever was is, I can retire in 2030. All I wanted this to be was something that will supplement my retirement and something that I enjoy, because I don't want to go back once I retire. I don't want to go and have to start working at Lowe's or somewhere. Nothing against, I've been a cop for that long. I don't want to have to go back out. If I can have my retirement and then write books and sit back and enjoy my retirement, that's what I want to do.
Right. Makes sense. You want to enjoy, you don't want to have to go and, yeah, I get it. Like, not against people that work at Lowe's or don't do or anything, but you
Yeah,
don't want to have to work 30 years and then go have to work another,
yeah.
20 years or so. And I get it. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, especially being a writer, it takes a lot of work.
People don't realize how much, because writing the book is the easy part. Da told me that, and I thought, what do you mean that's the easy part? What that is, I mean, and it's not like it's hard with the Amazon, but it's tedious, and there's certain things that you have to have right and make sure they're done right, or it. And then, of course, there's the thing that he and I both hate, and that's promotion, which obviously stuff like this helps out with that. But neither one of us are good at self promotion. I mean, because we're both just like, like,
Yeah.
like if they buy them, they buy them. But you got it. It's kind of like if you want them to do what you're wanting them to do, then you gotta kind of get out there and do that. And then, like getting a Patreon, I was like, man, I don't want. I hate asking. To me, almost like getting a Patreon was almost like asking for money and not really doing a whole lot for it. It's like,
Right.
I can see buying the books, and that you're getting something. But with Patreon, they're getting stuff like, okay, you put a chapter out for them to read, or you put a poll up to help out with a name a chapter, or just certain things that
Yeah, little things.
to me it's just almost like asking for money for nothing, and I hate that. But you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah. And the Patreon thing, I seen one time a guy had, and he was like, I think if you paid, I think it was $100 a month, which is a lot of money, he would FaceTime you once a month. It was a big YouTuber. And I'm like, $100 a month, and that guy will FaceTime me. I'm like, what do you talk about? Like, but like you said, I feel that way at the Patreon. That would be kind of like, hey, just give me money and I'll do something.
My tiers like $1.99, $5.99, and $10.99, not 100.
Yeah, and that's how I feel too, and being a writer is very hard. And it's kind of like me, starting out being a podcaster. It's hard, especially I feel like with what I talk about, right? A lot of people don't like talking about it. A lot of people don't want to open up about it. Some people, they just downright don't want to believe it, and which is fine too. But, we're not here to get on that soapbox anyway. What books have you read that gave you, I know your inspiration with Silver Bullet with the movies and stuff. So what are some of the books that you read growing up before like DA and all that? What are some of the books that you read growing up that were like, man, this is pretty cool. I want to be a writer kind of thing.
Growing up, I was not a big reader growing up. I read the books that I was supposed to read, that they made us read in school. But as far as, I was more like, I would read National Geographic and Popular Mechanics, Hot Rod. I would read magazines like that. But I wasn't really, because I was an athlete. I was always outside playing in the woods. In my eyes, I didn't have time to sit down and read a book. I needed to be outside doing something, or I was practicing, or, it's just, but when I started dispatching for a little while, just going through a rough time, and I was like, I wasn't sure that I wanted to keep on working on the road, but I didn't want to get out of it completely. So I dispatched for a year just to see if I, make sure my head was where it needed to be. Well, I dispatched on night shift, and nothing happened. We hardly got any phone calls. There was hardly any calls, and the guy that I worked with didn't like to do a whole lot once everything's kind of quieting down. So I had to do something to keep myself occupied. So one year for Christmas, one of my uncles gave me Richard Marcinko's book, Rogue Warrior, his autobiography, and I sat down and read that on my shift. I was like, man, that was amazing. So I found out that he wrote a bunch of fiction based on the missions and things that he had done, but I went and started read everything that he had. Everything he put out, I read every one of his books, and I was like, hey, this reading stuff ain't that bad. Well, growing up, Jaws was always my favorite movie, so I'm like, I want to read the book, because I've always heard, the books are better than movies. So I got read Jaws. I was like, that was amazing. And then I got White Shark, Peter Benchley's other book. I read that. That was amazing. And I'm like, yeah, so within that year, I read all of Marcinko's books. I read Jaws. I read White Shark. I found another writer, Brian Lumley, who wrote the Necroscope series, and that was probably 20 books or so. I read all of them, and that's about werewolf and vampire and all that kind of stuff in it. But he's from England, so you get a little different culture.
Right.
And honestly, I kind of think some of the ideas from my book maybe started around in that area, because the original story I had was the guy, he gets turned over here. And it's like the idea that I had, well, there's Asian elephants, and there's Indian elephants, and there's African elephants, and there's Bengal tigers, and there's Siberian tigers, and you got all these different. Why can't there be different species of werewolf?
Right.
Why can't you have these American, not to, take a swing at the movie, but, you got these American werewolves, then you got these werewolves over here. Well, the American version of the kind that you see, they're, stand up, they're on two legs, they're a lot stronger. They don't, but the ones over in Europe, they're more like the ones you saw on American Werewolf in London. They
Right.
on for it. So I got to think of what happens if this guy gets turned over here and finds out that there's somebody over in Europe that's been working on a cure. So he goes over there, stumbles across this group that's trying to stop them from having the cure, and something happens. He turns, and they don't know or realize that that there's difference, because nobody does at this point. He turns, and he's like this, just almost wrecks them, and I'm like, that's really complicated. I mean, it's interesting.
It is interesting. I liked where you were going with it. I was like, okay, that's very cool.
But that's especially for your very, very first book, that would be complicated. I mean, I'm not saying that I couldn't have done it, but so that was the idea for the first like 12, 13 years. Then I started changing a little bit here and there, and then, like I said, when I sat down that night and tried to go to bed, and it came into my head, I just never looked back. I wrote it. Now, I do wish that I maybe had wrote a different book first and then went back and wrote that one, because that was the central story, the very first one I had. And now I know I could do it so much better. And that's what I'm glad I did it, but it's bittersweet, I guess, is what I'm.
Right.
Because I'm like, that was my first one. Now I know this thing, and I can do this better, and I could, because I had one bad comment on one of my on the reviews for the first one, and the person said, and I know that I did it because DA called me on it, and I changed it from the second half of the book. I said Rick said a lot. Rick said, Rick said Rick. Rick replied, Rick, and I used Rick a lot, but I didn't know any better. And DA finally was like, dude, you can, when there's only two people in the conversation and it's established, it's okay to say he. You don't have to always let them know that it's, because it's just inferred. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I went back I changed it. And then that person said that my character development didn't make a lot of sense, which when I told DA that, he was like, nah, he said, your character development was spot on. I'm like, I'm just telling you what the guy said. And he said, does this person wrote a book? And I said, well, not to my knowledge. He goes, okay, I've wrote 30. Who you going to listen to?
Fair. Point. Good point. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, and for your first one, and like you said, and when you get that first bad comment, man, it just it almost deflates you. It makes you like, man.
I'm like, people who are wired to be in the military, law enforcement, things like that, we have the potential to do the same things that the wolves do, but we just choose to do the right thing.
Right.
And I wanted to throw all those metaphors. I didn't want to make it too metaphor heavy, but I wanted to throw all those in there and make it that it's a choice that people have to make and have to be aware of the choices they're making.
Yeah. And I like that a lot. And I like the way you did that, especially like, and in the beginning, and the way, like you said in the beginning, you make it to where the werewolf's like is just a beast at some point. And then as you read on, you figure out, oh, he's not. He's actually thinking. Like, this werewolf thinks. And I like that. That's cool, because you don't read that a lot. You normally read where it's only about the hero. That's the only person that thinks, and that's the only person you ever hear about. And then like the werewolf will pop in every now and again, and he has to fight it. But you don't ever see the werewolf side. And I like that you see his side. Even down to the point where he goes in, and he changes back and how he does it. And it's just, and I like that a lot. And that was something that drew me into it, like, really quickly right there. And from the very beginning, where I even described Clemson and all that, and it came down, and then he went out on the call, and the officer had passed away.
Every bit of that stuff is true.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The officer, Robby Bishop, that's every bit of that's true. He was a Georgia State trooper, just like I said in the book, and he was when I was first really finding my niche in law enforcement, found out that I was good at finding drugs in cars. Matter of fact, the guy that just came back to our police department now, he was my partner at the time. and we went through. He went through a little bit before me, and I went through right after him. That the school that I described, the A school, aggressive criminal enforcement, and that's where I'd already heard of Robby at the time. It's funny, his name's Robby too, but he spelled his with an IE. The videos that he had put out, they show those at the school. And up until the hit actually happened, he was still out there recording videos, still putting stuff out there. I mean, he knew that the hit had been put out, and he still wanted to make sure that he got as much information out to the rest of us as he possibly could. And I mean, that was just so that visceral thing that I always felt for that. I felt like I needed to put that in there because I mean, it was 100% true. The area, I mean, my old chief read the book. He was like, dude, he said, I felt like I was in the car with you. He said, I knew exactly where you were going. And John, the guy that I was talking about, that was my partner at the time, you know, he's like, dude, he said, I've read so many books in my life. He said, but that's the first book that I've ever read that I felt like I was a part of the story because I knew exactly where he was going. I knew there's a lot of people around here that have told me that, and it made me feel really good that people that live in this area that have read the book are like, you did it justice. I knew exactly where you were at. Now there's some things that I just kind of like the little pond area that I describe in the horse pasture. I don't know if that's up there or not because I hadn't been out in the middle of it in a long time. But you know, I mean, you take some liberties, but for the most part, all that stuff when it's talking about the landscape and all that and the area and the road names and all that stuff, it's all true. There was only one character as far as the main bad guy by name, and two of the victims were made up. Everybody else that's in that book is either based on a real person or it is that real person's name. Of
Oh
course,
wow, that's cool.
yeah, of course,
I
you know,
like
I
that.
got all their permission before I did all that, but just about, I would say probably about 90% of the cast of characters are real people. Obviously, like we talked about this before the show, I'm not Rick, but Rick's whole life is, I used my life to fill it in. My stepdad was the police officer. He's the one that raised me, but my real dad's the one that took me up to the horse pasture. My little brother is 8 years younger than me. My stepdad's his dad, but we have the same mom. So that's really my little brother. My kids' names both, my daughter starts with a T and my son starts with a K. So Kirk and Tina, it's not really Kirk and Tina, but I used all that stuff because it's believable because I know that and I don't have to sit there and go, all right, what am I going to say he did here? And that was a trick DA had taught me, was like, if you go from a place that's true, people are more apt to believe your story and accept the things that are fabricated.
I remember when I got into it and the way you described everything, like you put it in my head, like you had it painted pictured, and like your chief, right, had said it. It did. It felt like you were in the car with you. You know, you're reading it and you're getting into it.
Yep.
And it's like, oh man, like where are we going? Where are we going? What's next? I mean, even up to the point like when he comes out of the house, right, and he's clearing the backyard, like you feel like you're there, like, oh God, what's going on? What's going on?
I sent the first 3 chapters to him, and he called me after he got finished with the first chapter, and he was like, and to me, this was the biggest compliment I got or I could get from him. He's like, that was excellent the way you wrote that. He said, that's exactly how we would handle a situation like that. He said,
Yeah.
he said, I was in the car with him. He said, I was right there with. He said, it just made you feel like. He said, anybody that has done this and reads that, and that's what was kind of cool is one of the categories that I put it in was police procedures, and it debuted at number 850 in police procedures. And you think how many books are probably written, and for it to go that low, I was like, that to me that made me feel really good.
Yeah.
It debuted in the top 10 in one category, but it was almost as good to me for that 800 and something in police procedures as it was being in the top 10 in another category. Because the other category, I was like, oh, that's just, that's great because that's what the book is. But the
Right.
book was not a police procedural book. So that to me said that somebody appreciated the fact that I knew what I was talking about and could.
It's not like you just Google police lingo and just, oh, let me write this down. Oh, this sounds cool. And it's kind of like when you see a movie, right? And they'll have like the military in it, and they'll have their collars popped. Like you don't ever wear the collar like that. And me being an army vet, like you don't. It's one of those type of things. But then when you read a book that's written by somebody who's actually know what you're talking about, that's what gets you more into the book because it's not a bunch of BS that's written in it. Like you know what you're talking about. You know the lingo. You know what's said. You know the codes. And you even explain the codes after, you write them down for people that don't, because there are some people that don't know what those mean,
Yeah.
but you say them and it sounds amazing. You know what I mean?
And that's Da and Doc both were instrumental in all that stuff, because when they read it, they're like, well, obviously we know what this is, but nobody else does. So Da's like, you either need to do footer or not footers, footnotes or whatever that's called, where you make the little number and put it down at the bottom of the page, or and Doc said, well, you could just do the parentheses afterwards, which was easier. So I went ahead and did that.
Yeah, I don't know the footnotes. I'm not a writer. I guess that's where
Yeah.
you click it. Oh, okay. You can trace the word down on like your
Yeah.
Kindle or something. Okay. And that's what's cool, man. I really do enjoy it. And that's what, because it sucks you in. And I know I said that earlier, but it brings you into it, and it puts you there. It puts you in the moment. And that's what I like about reading like your book and DA's book and those kind of books. It brings you in it. And that's what I really appreciate you writing that way,
I appreciate it. And I hate to read a book that's got a really good story or a really good concept of a story, and then it doesn't deliver on. You're like, man,
yeah.
there's so much more you could have done with that story, and it just fell flat just because of lack of character. It's like we talked about on that, and I'm not going to name the name because I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about, where it had those two
Exactly.
characters. It spent a book and a half building these characters up, and then they just kind of
obliterate them. Yeah. And we don't even know what happened to them. Yeah.
To me, had I not been where I was at, it still would have upset me, but it upsets me so much more now, knowing the stuff that I know, that I'm like, even you said you're no writer, but you feel the same way. You're like, that's lazy writing, in my opinion.
It very much is. You could have they could have done that so much differently and ended that book, at least told us, okay, this is what happened. They killed X amount of this, or completely failed mission and only got them something, but just to end it with I think it's a thump or thrump, whatever it put in the book.
And
but yeah,
had those characters only been introduced like a couple of chapters before that, but they were, I mean, the whole book before that was mostly of them and what they did and how they ended up where they were at. And I'm like, how do you do that to two characters that are that central to the story you're telling and not give it some kind of, and that's something that I've always tried to, not always, I just started, but that's something that DA has always done in his books, and I've tried to do that. I try not to bring something up and then not tie it in or pay it off or do something. It may be towards the end of the book, it may be in the next book, because I've seen DA do that. I've seen him say something and then you not hear about it again until the next book, and you're like, well, there it is.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that, because that was the end of that.
Yeah, he ended it right there.
Yeah.
Boom, right there. And it was like, and then the next book was something totally different. They didn't even mention them, didn't say, oh, they found nothing, just on to the next chapter. And it's like, oh, okay, pardon my pun. But then, and it's one of those things, and it's like, yeah. And that's why I think, in me being the type of reader I am, once I get attached to a character, I mean, if they pass, they pass, but I want to know why. I want to know they did, and if they're going to live. But like you said, sometimes you may write something in and bring it up in another book, and it may be so minute you don't even think about it, and then it circles back, and you're like, oh, wow, that's that person. Wow, this person, yeah.
It doesn't matter, in my opinion, it doesn't matter when you pay it off, as long as you pay it off.
Right.
But you can't spend that much time setting somebody up, telling backstory, going through this and doing, getting your readers invested in these characters, and then just
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well, even the main bad guy from that book on, he basically was thrown away because you really don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, and
you can assume what it was, but you never know what happens with what turned him and
nothing.
The confrontation between the originals, shall we say, and him.
Yeah.
That's two different. See, that's stuff that could have been explored. There was plenty enough material there for another 5 or 6 books if he wanted to.
If he would have just brought it in. Oh yeah, he could have excelled on that.
Because what happens is that main bad guy, does he go in and take over the OG?
Yeah, does he take out Homeboy that was controlling them all from the beginning?
Yeah,
Or
and that I forgot about that. The mysterious figure from that was just
yeah,
totally
that goes.
crossed over. I mean,
Yeah, because he ends up he walks on the dude's porch that was like yelled at him like, get out of here, you're not, you're not supposed to be here. And then he walks up on the porch and he's like, oh, you brought old dude over here and you shouldn't have, because I can't control him. And then yeah, next chapter is totally something different. You're like, oh, this is about to get good. You're like, wait, what are we talking about? Oh, wait, what's going on? Yeah,
yeah.
it's almost like he had intentions to do it, but then just nah, I ain't
Yeah.
doing that, ain't doing that, ain't doing that. Okay, cool.
And the tension that was there when the sheriff and the two other
Yeah,
guys were pretty much surrounded, and he comes out and says what he says, and then that's the last you saw of him.
that was it. That was it. You don't see nothing else. Don't hear nothing
Set this
else.
guy out to be like this super villain.
Yeah, the ultimate bad guy, the ultimate villain, the king
Yeah.
of the king of the creatures. And I'm trying so hard not to say it because I don't want a bunch of rash at the front on the emails and the front doors. But man,
Yeah.
it's what you know what I'm talking about. But the
I mean,
ultimate super villain, and just I don't know, just ends it.
I will say this: I really enjoyed the books.
Oh, I loved him.
The character development was excellent especially on the main characters,
Mm-hmm.
and I would recommend those books. It's just those things. There was just so much more that could have been done,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I don't know what happened or what was going on. There may have been something that caused that, but there was just so much more potential that was just left.
Just left right there. Just right there. Could have been so much better. But it reminds me of what was that one book? Yeah, and it was the third one, the third or fourth one. He wraps that one up good, and then but it leaves you like he quit writing. He just went ghost. We got to fight this one now in this other town. Old man bust in. Yeah, it's this. What? How does old man already know what it is? And then you just leave us there. Cool. I think it's been like 5 years since you wrote another one. Great. And me, I'm just sitting here researching, like I said, waiting. I'll just sit here and wait. Like I just wait for you and DA's books, just sit here. But now I got y'all on watch this podcast, so y'all can't get away from me now. But it's but yeah, man, and I've read some books where you think it's gonna be good, then it goes completely out of left field. I read one, man, and I'm almost embarrassed that I read it. So I typed in Monster Hunters one day, right? And this book came up. I don't know who wrote this book. I don't even know how it was, but it started off these Civil War soldiers. They're coming back home. They run into, I don't want to give away too much copyright, but they run into creatures. A creature kills a bunch of them. One guy's left. The guy ends up doing things with the creature, and it's yeah. I had to.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute, but not how I would have wrote it, but okay.
I had to like brush over it. Like when we get off air, I'll explain it better to you. But I had to, brush over everything, and it was like.
Make sure you tell me the name of it so I make sure I don't download it.
I have to remember the name. It was so long. I was like, "What is this?" Because it was right after I'd read Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter, and I'd read that in like 17 or 18. I read the first one, then I read the second one. Might have been Heart of Scars. I don't know. It was one of those, and I was left on that high, right? Because the way he ended it, you can't. There's no other way, and I was like, there was nothing else for me to read. So I was just Monster Hunter came up, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be cool, and it was indeed not cool. It was, I don't know. It was one of those. I guess it was in a different section that I shouldn't have been in. It's kind of like when when you type in werewolf books, right? And if you go to Google and type in werewolf books, most of them you're gonna get a romance. So you have to really filter through.
Yeah,
because you get these weird Twilight type romance novels,
and it seems like that.
and
For some reason, people think that's the only way you can write a werewolf novel is that some woman is lusting for a werewolf.
Yeah. No, have you ever read a werewolf story? Werewolves are violent creatures. They're not lovers of man. They eat men. To me, like reading your book, like the way you describe the werewolf, to me, I see werewolf from Underworld, and that's how I describe it every time, because those are my favorite werewolf franchise right there.
In my mind, it's a mix of those. Now, more what Lucian turned into.
Yeah.
and a mix of him and Hugh Jackman's werewolf from Van Helsing.
Oh yes, that was a good werewolf too.
Those are my two inspiration when I think of what Rick turns into. It's something in
In
that
between,
in between that.
and to get out, this has popped in my head just to do a little history. But that in the scene, I think it was the last Underworld where you find out about the Lycans, right? The guy with the long hair, he's like the main Lycan. I think they kill him in the
Lucian.
first one. Yeah, Lucian. So when Lucian gets drug into the vampire's court and he jumps out the window after they kill his bride, that was a real thing that it happened. And I want to say I covered it in the werewolf trials. I think it was Garnier. Yeah, I think it's the guy that's named after the shampoo's named after. He's not named after shampoo. Obviously, he's older than shampoo.
Right.
But it was Garnier or one of them. They brought him into the French court, and there's documents like French documents, or French or Dutch. It's old, but Montague Summers writes about it, and they brought him in, and these are from like federal judges at the time, so they're well trusted. And they said they brought him in, and they were gonna kill him. Hey, you're on trial for lycanthropy. You've been murdering children, women, blah 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 blah. Right? And they bring him in. He's chained up, and supposedly he like starts laughing, and they're like, "Why are you laughing?" He's like, "You can't kill me." And they're like, "Yeah, we can." He goes, "No, you can't, because you have to catch me." And they said, "We got you caught." And somehow an argument ensues between him and the head judge, and he just like busts out his chains. Same thing, jumps smooth ass out the window, 100 foot up, jumps out the window, and takes off into the night. And it was seen by like 12 or 13 different people, and that was their only count of the werewolf. And that was, yeah. And it's all the lore. That's why I like reading about them so much, because all the lore about werewolves is so just cool. If you really get into it, it's all cool stories and folklore, and it's never the same. It's usually, and there's so many different ways to become a werewolf, and which I like. You could be, what is it, bit?
You can be bitten, you can be scratched, you can be
Scratch.
born that way. You can drink water out of a wolf's paw. You can wear a pelt made of
With the
wool with the salve that
yeah.
supposedly, or you get cursed to turn into it by a witch. I mean, there's to me, like I said, there's like you said, there's many different ways. But to me, I wanted to do that, the attack bit, and
Yeah.
that's where it came from. But I think it was Hemlock Grove. Did you see that TV show on? I think it was on Hulu.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They actually used drinking from the wolf's paw.
Yeah. From the wolf's paw at midnight.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever seen any show or anything do or talk about anything like that. And they actually do a pretty cool transformation on both ends of the spectrum. It's got one where the first time he turns or it shows him turn into the werewolf, uh, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's pretty cool. And then he looks up and you see the human eyes or you see him have the wolf's eyes from a human standpoint. And then there's one in the later episodes where he's already a werewolf, and he goes up to this guy and he opens his mouth, and the human hand comes out of the mouth and touches him and goes back in his mouth. That was
That's
that's pretty
wicked,
cool.
man. I like that. That's cool. I have to check that show out. It's on Hulu.
I think it was Hulu that it was on. If you want to watch like the first 2 or 3 seasons, after that it gets really stupid.
Oh,
First season was really good. Second season was pretty good, and the third season it was okay, but it started going into that territory. And after that, I don't know how many seasons it was after that, but Landon Laborian or Luberon or however you pronounce his last name was in the Howling Reborn.
okay.
He's the main one of the main characters in that. Also, which Skarsgård was it that played Pennywise in the new It?
The new kid.
The one that just did the new Crow movie.
Oh, what is his name?
He's one of the Skarsgård brothers. I can't remember what his first name is. Anyway, he's in it too. Is it Famke or Famika or however she pronounces her name? She's in it. There's a lot of big name actors that are in it. It's fairly good, like I said. But it gets, like I said, just towards the end of it, it was getting really, really bad, really weird.
It makes you not want to watch it. Yeah, I hate when they do that, man. When they take a good show and just
Well,
butcher
and,
it.
and Teen Wolf was that way. The MTV Teen Wolf, that
Yeah,
first 2 or 3 seasons was amazing. Then all of a sudden it has to get political and get all. I'm not going to go.
yeah. I know what you mean. Every time it does that. Yeah, it runs it. It just it runs TV for you. That's why mostly, man, I just watch a YouTube or documentary, something they can't
Yep.
ruin. Because you get into a show and then you look into it and it's just it's done. You know, it's kind of like watching The Walking Dead. You watch that the first like 5 seasons, 6 seasons, it's okay, but then it's like it's repetitive. You know,
Was
it's
it?
just
I couldn't watch past like season 3 on that. It just got to me. It was just like, how long do you want to drag this out? I mean, it is what it is. I mean, now,
yeah.
granted, I heard there was some big twist towards the end of it. That was it a dream or something like that.
I
I,
never finished it. I couldn't
I didn't
finish it.
either. So,
It
but
might
to
have
me,
been
it's like
like a dream or something weird.
it gets to a point and you're like, okay, how much more of a story can you tell? I mean, they're running from zombies. They're trying to survive, trying to find out if people they meet on the road are going to be decent people or are they going to be buttholes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And they find a base, they take it over, then they get attacked. And then they
Yep.
end up getting kidnapped. Then they got to go fight this boss. They kill that boss. Yeah, it's the same. Did you ever see what was that werewolf movie? It was kind of like a spoof, but it was a good movie. I liked it. Was it Werewolf Cop?
Oh,
Did you
Wolf
ever see
Cop.
that? Wolf Cop. Did you
Wolf
see
Cop and
that one?
another Wolf Cop. Yes, I've seen both of them.
We were talking earlier about every werewolf movie from Tubi, A, B, C, D, E. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's on the Z list. But man, it's funny. It's a good one. I think people
I'd
should
put
check
that
it
higher
out.
than some of the other ones that I've seen.
Yeah, it's not a
The
good one to watch with
story in
kids,
general,
but
the story in general is actually pretty interesting.
yeah,
It was heavily tongue. Have you seen the second one?
I haven't seen the second one. When I watched the first one, I laughed.
I think it's on. It might be on Tubi, or yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on Tubi right now. It's called Another
Is it
Wolf.
another Wolf Cop? I'm about to
Yeah.
check it out.
Now, where the first one was campy, and this one just like really goes in. It goes into some way out there
Because
stuff.
okay.
It's funny, but the second one makes the first one look like a serious movie.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to watch that one then. Because that first one, I could not stop laughing. Especially the bathroom scene when he turns the first time. Oh, you're like, are you serious? Man, everything
Well, gonna
explodes.
stop up at the brewery. That looks like you, Lou.
Yeah.
And but see that to me was one of the funniest jokes of the movie. Was his name
Yeah,
Lou
Lou, yeah.
Garou?
Lou Garou, yeah. It
That's
was
Prince the
Officer
Werewolf.
Officer Lou Garou. Yeah, it was destined to be. Have you seen the new Wolfman yet? I haven't seen it. I want to see it though. The
Oh, the one
remake.
with the no, and I won't watch it either.
Oh, you're refusing, huh?
Nah, that's not. I mean, I watched so many, and I saw the Universal thing where they showed the Wolfman, and I'm like, what is that? That I think Benicio del Toro did a great job remaking it. To me, that's the
Oh,
remake of that movie.
yeah. In 2010, I believe.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that
so.
one. I watched that one.
Him, Anthony Hopkins. I thought that movie, and I don't know why it got panned. I thought that it was number one. I mean, Rick Baker did special effect and won another Academy Award. The only horror person to win Academy Awards twice was Rick Baker in his both werewolf makeups for American Werewolf in London and the Wolfman remake.
Watch it.
It's not a werewolf. I mean, it's a guy with a disease, and the disease gets passed on. It's well, I mean, they call it a werewolf, or they call it, but I don't think they'd actually do in the movie, to be honest with you, because I've watched Cody Leach. Have you ever watched him on YouTube?
No.
He's a big time horror movie review guy. He reviewed it and he gave it a negative review. Chris Stuckman is another one, and I've got guys that I watch that I've watched enough of their reviews, and their viewpoints are usually on par with most of the time that they say they didn't like a movie, it's a movie that I didn't really like, and if it's a movie that they like, it's usually a movie that I've liked, with the exception of The Terrifier, because that's another one that I just refuse to watch.
Okay.
I can't stand stuff like that movie Bone Tomahawk.
Oh, yeah, you didn't like that one?
No, that movies that are like The Terrifier that push the boundaries of horror just to push that boundary, just to see how gross they can get it and how vile for no reason other than just I'm gonna push this envelope just to see.
Yeah, just see where it's at.
Reason for it. There's no reason for it, and that. I mean, granted, supposedly after the first movie, he turns into some kind of demonic spirit. But in the first movie, Art was a real person doing this crap. To me, that's not horror. That's that could really happen. Stuff like Freddy and Jason and even Michael Myers, werewolves, vampires, that is supernatural. And to me, it's not like it's off limits. But when you have a real person doing stuff like this, it's just like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm not a fan of that because that was
Yeah.
based on a true story. And I just, stuff like that, I love horror movies. I just don't like that stuff. I don't like stuff that pushes the limit just because nobody else has gone this way. Nobody else has hung a person upside down and cut them in half. So let's do that. Why?
Uh,
Just
yeah.
because just because nobody's done it before is not a reason to do it. I mean, there's probably a
Right.
reason I haven't done that before because it's freaking gross.
Nobody wants to see it.
What? So
And you
Bone
wonder what's not in
Tomahawk did it.
theaters.
So what does the Terrifier do? Well, Bone Tomahawk has hung somebody upside down and quartered them. Well, let's do it slowly with the hacksaw.
Oh, I never seen the Terrifier. I don't know what's that one. Is that about the clown?
Yeah, little skinny white
Oh,
faced clown.
so it's a real person. The clown is.
Well, in the first movie, he's not supernatural. He's supposedly a real person, but he gets
Okay.
killed, and then he comes back in the preceding
They have
movies.
Okay, they have to figure out how to kill him again.
Yeah, and
Okay, yeah, it's one of those.
yeah. To me, but the directors and producers have literally said we want to see how far we can push this. What can we show? They kill kids, things like that.
Yeah,
I guess that's there again the sheepdog in me that I just I can't get behind stuff like that.
yeah,
Even somebody who likes werewolf movies and vampire movies and things like that, and loves a good action movie where people get shot off. There still has to be that limit that you have to go to, and to me, that's not entertainment. It's gore candy, is what they call it.
yeah,
And I don't go to a movie just to see. I don't go to a werewolf movie just to see how many different ways a werewolf can rip somebody apart. It's
right.
not what it's all about. I mean, obviously you got to have the gore to make money nowadays because that's what people want to see. But it's the story that makes the difference to me. And
Yeah, it's
movies like that don't. There's not a story that's being told there. It's okay. You got a final girl that's got to make it through this situation. What are they going to throw at her? How shocking are they going to get in the thing? And I guess that's why I like writing books. Because it's like I can tell the story. Yeah, there's attack scenes in it. That are gory, but there's a story there, and it's a bigger issue than okay, what's the clown going to do this time? How's the clown going to
yeah.
kill somebody this time? I don't know. I guess that's my soapbox on.
Hey, I agree with it though. I mean, I just never got behind the whole killer clown thing either. It wasn't my. I'm a werewolf, vampire, those kind of horror movies. I like those. I'm not really into slasher films. I guess I like action. And one of my movies I like to watch. I was really excited when it came out. I'm sure you probably saw it. It was fake, but it was the Bigfoot documentary in East Texas. I forget what it was called. But anyway, about those kids, they go off in the woods and they're at the uncle's cabin and they get locked
It
down.
exists.
Exists, yes. I was excited. Like stuff like
Yeah,
that. To me,
yeah,
that's
that was
cool.
great. Kay and I talked about that right after it came out. He watched it and he said, "Have you seen this yet?" And I'm like, "Nah." He said, "You need to watch it." So I went and watched it the very next day, and I was like, "Dang, that's pretty good." That was good. Ones like Big Legend. That's another good one. I like
Hmm.
Primal Fear, Primal Rage. Love that one. But like you said, that kind of stuff where it's the survival, not just like your run of the mill slasher or whatever that's going through.
Yeah.
Somebody that's put out in the woods in a situation where they have zero control and they have to do what they have to do to survive. I love Primal Rage. That's one of my favorite movies. If you hadn't seen it, you need to watch it.
I might have to go check that one out.
Basically, yeah, and I both agree on this, and Doc too, that we think that's a Genosqua because it actually, if you look at it from the side and some of the stills, if you pull it up, it's got the like the mandrill beak, and actually, but could be a Genosqua too, like Stalkup wrote about, because it uses not like mud and rocks, but it uses like tree bark as armor. Makes a mask and makes a chest plate and stuff like that. But the general part of the story is girl goes to pick her husband up. He was in jail because they had a wreck a couple years ago, and I think he had been drinking. Somebody got hurt. He ended up going to jail. So she's going to pick him up, and a guy, I think it's in somewhere in Oregon, maybe is where, or maybe Washington. One of the Pacific Northwest states. They're on one of these curvy mountain roads, and a guy staggers out in front of them, and they clip him, and they think they killed him. But he's in the passenger seat, and he had popped a beer open. She told him not to. Well, when they hit him, it spills all over him. So she's trying to call the authorities. He's like, "Hey, hello! I just got out, and now I smell like beer. We hit this guy." So while they're arguing, something starts throwing rocks at him, hits him in the head, knocks him out, knocks him down the riverbank. She jumps in after him, and then that's how they get stuck in the river, and this thing's chasing them. And then
Oh.
it's a pretty intense movie.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that one out. That sounds good, though. It sounds like a lot of the encounters, it sounds pretty good. I like that one. It's called Primal Rage.
Primal Rage. It's
Okay.
there's not a there may be like one or two known actors in it, but for the most part, they're all like no name actors, but they all do a really good job, and it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah, they did the Squatch from Justice.
Yeah, and it's not just a big animal running around out there just tearing people apart. Its own handmade tools. Use a bow and arrow a couple times. It's got a knife, a stone knife. Like I said,
That sounds pretty good.
It makes armor. There, DA and I have talked about adaptive camouflage, and this thing they actually hit on that because it's like flashes the camera across and you don't see it, and then it comes back across, and you see it because it moves. Holy crap! There it is.
Sounds like the writer and director actually did some research on what they didn't just write a Bigfoot movie. They actually did some research on it. That sounds good. It's like that story I heard. What do they call him? The Blue Man. The Blue Man. You've probably heard it.
Yeah, I've heard. I think we didn't do a whole show on it, but we kind of talked about it.
Where he has like deer skin shoes on and climbing the mountains. Yeah, reminds me of that story almost because I think he had a bunch of weapons with him and stuff too. But he was really hairy. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm gonna check the Primal Rage. Okay, I'm gonna check that one out. Yeah, they need to come out with a good Dogman versus Bigfoot kind of movie. I think that would be a good hit. Or not just any Bigfoot, like a Gugway, and see who would win that one. Because we all know how violent Gugways are. They'd have to really do some research, though, to figure out how violent they were. But I don't know. Who do you think would win enough? Yeah, read a DA book. You'll figure it out. Who do you think would win in that fight? Werewolf or Gugway?
My heart says werewolf, but my head says Gugway.
Yeah, mine too.
And honestly, I've been on shows where we've had this was our whole topic, but I was on Donnie Cho's show one time. Donnie Cho says stuff, and he had me and Tex on there, and that was the whole premise of it, was me and Tex arguing for who we thought would win. But here's the thing: are we talking about a werewolf or are we talking about a dog man?
Yeah.
Because if we're talking about a supernatural werewolf versus a flesh and blood animal that's a Gugway, then like Hugh Jackman's werewolf in Van Helsing, that's gonna rip a Gugway apart, no problem.
Yeah, it's literally. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, because if we're talking about a dog man like DA saw in LBL, that's just an animal that I think Gugway's probably gonna take it.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about like Silver Bullet, Van Helsing, any of those movies like that, I think the werewolf wins all day long.
Yeah, because the actual werewolf. Yeah, because they're. Because werewolves are evil. The only way to kill them is a silver bullet, cut the head off, set the body on fire. Few ways.
Look what the werewolf did to Dracula in Van Helsing.
Yeah, he held him up. Yeah, exactly.
Because when he even said that werewolves were stronger than vampires, it's just vampires controlled them and got them under control before they were able to get their faculties about them and get control. As soon as Hugh Jackman's character decided, hey, I'm going to fight this and I'm going to, he's not going to control me, it was pretty obvious.
And that made a great ending in that movie. But that's been a hatred since the dawn of time too. It's werewolves and vampires. It's like Dogman and Bigfoot. They've always hated each other. But I think and it starts back. What was it? Two brothers. One was
that's the underworld version of it. Two brothers, the sons of Corvinus. One was bitten by a bat. One was bitten by a wolf.
And then that's how they started off.
Yep, that was David and William.
Yeah, and
the two sons of Corvinus. But see, and that's they never really say that. Corvinus was an immortal, but he wasn't a werewolf or a vampire. They never really covered that in the movie.
No, they never really say what he was.
Because he wasn't either one. Because it was the two sons of Corvinus. One was bitten by a bat, and one was bitten by a wolf. One of them started the lichens. One of them started the vampires.
Yeah.
Well, that's how Celine got all her powers. When he was dying, he said, "Take what's left of my blood," and that's what made her so powerful. And she was able to kill William, or not
William.
No,
Victor.
William was Marcus.
Marcus. Yeah, Marcus was. Yeah, they woke Marcus up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what was it? You look back, and Montague Summers writes about where the werewolf started was, there's like so many different legends of how it started. There's one, they were cursed by the gods. There's one that, who was it? Brought the wrong, what was his name? King Lycan brought the wrong,
He was trying to fool Zeus, and he killed his youngest son and was trying to feed him human flesh. So he was,
and Zeus got mad, cursed him
and his other son, and they were going to walk the earth as beasts.
And they never. And that's what's crazy is like werewolves. The legends have been around forever. I mean, I think every the culture has a werewolf type legend. From
you've heard of the Paradise Map, hadn't you?
Yes, that's the one they just found, right? Or they started piecing together again.
Yeah, it's probably one of the oldest pieces of writing known to man. And it's dated back. The copy that they originally talked about was dated back to the 1400s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or not 1400s. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact. It's one of the oldest. It's like ancient Sumerian type stuff. It's old, and the reason they call it Pyrrhus or however you pronounce that is that's just the Turkish admiral that made it famous. It's pretty much a map of Antarctica.
Okay.
Navy cartographers have pretty much come up to that's exactly what Antarctica looks like without it. There's ports and there's what looks like settlements and things like that. But anyway, and DA's got because he's got a big picture of it and he's put it on the show before. If you look down in like where the margins are around the borders of the map, there are things like that look like dogmen and look like Sasquatch or Bigfoot or whatever you want to call them. There's the legend, the Mapinguari, which is from Brazil, I think, somewhere in South America. Some of the legends about that. Now, a lot of people think now that's just a subspecies of Bigfoot, right? But if you read some of the old legends about it, they said that the thing's mouth was in its stomach. Well, if you look on the Pyrrhus map, there's a thing that it looks like a Bigfoot creature because it's got big long arms, but it's got a mouth in its stomach. We were looking at it and we're like, oh God, look at that. That's what Robin Warren says that. But there's all kinds of stuff on that. Pull up a picture of that and look at some of the drawings that are on it. We did like 2 full shows on that.
Just on that map. Yeah, I'm going to Google it. I'm going to check it out when we get off here. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Antarctica is one of my favorite things to talk about. That place is just... And that's another good set of books. I think it's called The Last Hunter. You might want to, a matter of fact, while we're thinking about that, because I've got those in there, and you would love these books.
Okay, The Last Hunter.
I think it's either Primal Hunter or The Last Hunter. That's two series, but I don't remember which one's which. But basically, and it's about Antarctica, and it's about this guy that... when it starts off, he's a kid, but he's the only person that's ever been born on the continent of Antarctica, and that brought about this prophecy. And it goes into like talking about Thor and Zeus and Hades and all these mythical. They call them the men of renown, but all these demigods, Hercules, all that stuff. It's besides DA's books, this is the most encompassing universe I've ever read from a set of books.
Oh wow. That's pretty cool. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, and it's on Audible. And you can get the, what do you call it, when they bundle, like, all the books together, like omnibus or something like that.
Oh, where it just has them all and you can just listen, like, boom, boom, boom. Okay.
It's called The Last Hunter Collected Edition. Jeremy Robinson.
Okay. And it has a lot of good stuff about Antarctica and all that. Because
that Antarctica is as much a character in the book as the characters.
Because being a conspiracy theorist, I want to learn more about Antarctica, you know.
Well,
So,
that book has got a lot of the ideas DA and I have talked about. Some of them come from that book or
okay,
from
I'm
that
going to check
series.
that out.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
it's
Antarctica, it's a
good.
very mysterious
I
place.
mean,
Yeah.
you got everything from dinosaurs to lizard people to demigods to Tartarus. I mean, if it's an ancient myth, it's in there.
Oh, yeah.
There's mention of Bigfoot in there. I mean, it's very extensive, and I
Yeah,
think
I'm going to
it's like
check that out.
4 books total.
Okay.
They're good. I
Yeah.
really think that you would enjoy them.
Yeah, I'm going to check
Seeing
that
as how
out
we
for sure.
got a lot of the same type taste.
Interest. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to check that. That sounds good, man. Yeah, I'm going to check that out for sure. The last hunt, you said?
Last Hunter.
Last Hunter. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get on when we get off here. I'm gonna get on Google and get it downloaded and get that queued up after I finish your books. I'm gonna get that next. Trying to read as much as I can this year, so that'll be part of it right there. Yeah, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
have you come back. I'm gonna have to have you come back on, and we'll get into Antarctica.
Yeah, I love talking about that. That's a I mean, it's just all these countries kind of control it, but nobody claims it. That's just weird.
Yeah, it's very, and that's what I love about it. It's a mysterious place, right? I know you got to have like X amount of dollars to even go there.
And you got to have permission, and they tell you you can only go here, here, here.
Yeah, there's something down there they don't want you to see,
Oh yeah.
and you can't be out there leaking secrets. They'll take you and your whole family out. Yeah, I might have to have you come back on and try to talk about that for sure. I know I need to message y'all and get together and come back on y'all's show to talk about. I was about to say Antarctica, Jesus, Atlantis with y'all. I know we were supposed to get into that.
Yeah, we did a show tying Atlantis, Antarctica, and I can't remember what. You might go back and look in our archives because we did a whole show about the tie-ins between Atlantis and Antarctica and a few other things.
Yeah, that's one of the great mysteries that I like. I love talking about them, man, because being a conspiracy theorist that I've been for so long, that's just one of those things, man. It's like everybody has an opinion on it, what it is, and there's pictures you can look up, but you got to trust the source, and it's just, what is it? There's that one that people are like, oh, is it what's on the Great Wall down there? Is that a wall?
Mm-hmm.
I seen one picture. They think it's turret guns. What are they facing at? Or is there another universe beyond it? Like what? Why is it so secretive? What's actually down there? There was that spoof movie they made, and where who was it? I forgot which lady it was making fun of the presidents, and they come in and they go to Antarctica and they open it up, and it's the center of the earth. And they go in, and it's a whole other world, right? They ride dinosaurs, but it was I forgot what it was, and basically everything's on the moon, and it was a good movie, but it was a funny movie. But if you're a conspiracy theorist, you're like, oh, they really just telling us like that whole thing. But yeah, we're definitely gonna have to have you back on. It's running out of time here, so if you want, Robby, go ahead and plug in your books and where people can find you and all that good stuff, and we'll wrap this up.
Well, obviously, you can find Da and I and Doc most of the, when his work allows him. When his work allows, but always me and Da every Wednesday and Saturday at 9 p.m. Central on or excuse me 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's Da Ex Machina right now. We're getting ready to change the name to the Nightmare Hunters though. Brief story behind that is when the channel first started, obviously it was just Da, and it was more about him and promoting his books. But it's kind of morphed into what it is now, and like Da said, it's more about all of us and the things that we're doing, the things that we're going out and doing, the books that he and I are both writing. So it's about all of us. So we're in the process of getting a new intro and outro video and some things like that. So probably next month or so, it's probably going to change to the Nightmare Hunter. We're going to keep number of episodes at the same, but the name will be changing. Everything else will stay the same. You can find my books on Amazon. Look under Robby Jed Rains, and the reason it's Robby Jed Rains is because Jed is my character in Da's books. That's where a lot of people know. You can find Da's books at daroberts.net and Amazon. And you're probably going to want to start reading both sets of books because there's some stuff coming in the books that you might need to read both sets to figure everything out. But yeah, on YouTube at DX Machina Podcast or Amazon, just search Minor His Name to get our books. I've got two out right now. I've got the first two books of the Shadow Walker series, Shadow Walker's Silver Star and Shadow Walker's The Creature of Scapore Swamp. There's the second one. I just got my copies of the second one today, or yesterday. And then I'm about getting close to 40,000 words in the third book. I think I'm on chapter 18 now, so hopefully next week I should be pretty close to done on that. Then I'll have to get DA to do the editing, or the formatting rather, and then get my cover done, and hopefully by the 1st of July I'll be able to be ready to get that one in print and publication. The Shadow Walkers, The Terror of the Wampus Cat.
I'm excited about them, man. I really am. Yeah, because I know I've heard you and DA talk about it. There's some big things coming with both of y'all's books. Yeah, so you heard it, folks. You need to read both of them, get caught up.
There's going to be some stuff revealed in Terror of the Wampus Cats. Some connections are made, let's just say.
It's awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Robby.
Oh, I
Man,
enjoyed it, man.
it's been an honor. Yeah, we're gonna have to have you come back on, and we'll jump right into Atlantis next time. I appreciate it, man. I really do. All right, man. Well, have a good one, brother.
All right, you too, man.
Thank you. Well, that's it for tonight, everybody. If you want to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is polarbearhoth@gmail.com. Or you can reach me on TikTok and Instagram, polarbearhoth. Go down to the Facebook page, Highway of the Hidden, and send us a DM, and we'll get back to you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.